we all know what Serap is about. First, let me apologize that we are beginning this event a little behind schedule, even though, there's online audience. We just needed to make the hybrid nature of the work of this event work a little better. Once again, our apologies. We'll try to keep everything else within time. Organization devoted to promoting transparency, accountability, and respect for socio-economic rights in Nigeria. Now, this event is to present a report that is based on the 2017 Auditor General's report. Personally, I've been very concerned in my practice as a journalist, asking the question, why is it that every year, year after year, we have the Auditor General's report, indicts a good number of agencies, talks about some money that ought to have been remitted that are not remitted, calls to question the activities of some officers working in ministries, departments, and agencies, and yet we still continue to find a situation where the same report seems to produce almost the same result every year, but with an increasing amount of money being involved on a yearly basis. But before we go on, let me first of all make some announcement for those of us who are joining in the virtual space. If you are on site, that's it. If you're in this hall, you don't need to join the virtual people. You're already here. So let's try to save some bandwidth for those who will be joining us from different parts of the world. Now, for those of us in the virtual space, please, whenever you are about to speak, do us the favor of unmuting your own mic. You will be prompted at the right time sirs. When you are to do that. If you are not speaking, kindly put your phone on mute or off while someone else is speaking, as well as when panelists or anyone else, a facilitator, is speaking. Should there be a network glitch where you are cut off from the virtual space at any time, the same link will bring you right back. Just tap on that same link again through any device that you're using, whether it's your desktop or your handheld or your mobile device, your phone. You can just pick up the conversation whenever and wherever you meet us when you come back. Now, there may be comments that you have, or questions that you will be able to put in the conversation. There will be a Q&A session, so there will be a Q&A feature on your device right now. It will be appropriate for you to put in those comments there, your questions right there. We'll read them at the appropriate time. If you really have something to say, we will be able to hear you in the hall. So just use the raise hand feature on the lower part of the screen or wherever it is on your own device to indicate your request to speak. And at the appropriate time, you will be recognized and you will be permitted to speak. Please, whenever you are permitted to speak or where you put in your comments or your questions, kindly use civil language so that we can have mutual respect for everyone. And finally, please put your name and your email in the chat feature on your device screen now. It will be used to send virtual copies of the report to you. And of course, it will be good to know what part of the universe you are joining us from, and if it's from another universe, it'll also be good to know. Colleagues, now, for those who may want to join the conversation on your social media, Serap is on all social media platforms as Serap Nigeria: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok.
I see a message saying
Sarah
they're actually
is
working
at
on it.
Sarah Nigeria.
Let's hope to
So once again, I say welcome to this event. My name is Ayo Makinde. Now, to welcome us and set the tone for this event, please welcome the Deputy Director of SERAP, Mr. Kolawole Oluwadari.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'd like to apologize to the room and those joining us online. There's a bit of a technical glitch with those virtually participating. As you all know, it's an hybrid event. So they can't hear us presently, and we are trying to sort that out. So be that as it may, it would appear that my comments this morning will be solely to those of you in the room. And I think that may call for some restructuring. And if I have your vote, we may as well restructure. Maybe we should give these the tech guys some time to sort this out. I apologize, really. It took a while for us to get that feedback when Mr. Makinde was speaking. So please, I would ask for your indulgence for some few minutes, so we can carry everybody along, so that all the I think we have two geopolitical zones, those in the room and those joining us virtually. So let's have some time, please. Mr. Makinde. Thank you.
All right, so, well, in the light of that, let's use this as the National Assembly. All in favor say aye. All who are not in favor say nay. Unfortunately, I don't have a gavel here, so let me just say the ayes have it. So let's take a recess for about 10 minutes. We'll be right back. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello. Can you? Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Once again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you can, well, we understand that we had some difficulty earlier, such that the people who were joining us in the virtual space couldn't hear us. If you can hear us now, please send us a message in the chat room to confirm that indeed you can hear us. So once we get that, then we are comfortable. If we have information that you have any difficulty getting through to us, whether visually or audio, we would also like to address that. So to that, I say good morning, online and offline. Once again, my name is Ayo Makide, welcoming you to this media presentation and interactive session on SERAP's latest report titled Above the Law, How Ministries, Departments, and Agencies Are Getting Away with Corruption in Nigeria. For those of us who are here, we know what SERAP is about, And this event is essentially to ask the question, why are authorities turning a blind eye or seem to be turning a blind eye to corruption in ministries, departments, and agencies, and its impact on public services in Nigeria? Now, the report is based on the 2017 Auditor General's report, which aims to discuss the issues raised by the audited report and as well as propose recommendations and action plan on how to address them. Personally, in the course of work, I have been concerned about how that every year we have the Auditor General's report from year after year after year, and it would seem like the same number of agencies of government, ministries, departments are the same set committing, quote unquote, the same offense every year. The only difference is that every year there is that issue of the amount of money. That's the only thing that changes. Everything else seems to be the same. If you peruse the report, for those of us who are online, you may not have the report yet, but you will definitely get them. So let me just get straight to some of the announcements here this morning. Now, for those of us who are in the hall, who are on site at this event, you don't need to get online. You don't need to join the Zoom room. You don't need to join via Zoom or via any meeting platform. You are already here. So it'll help us to save some bandwidth for those of us who are online. So if you're online, this is for you. Please unmute yourself only when you are permitted to speak. Please turn off your mic or mute your mic, as the case may be, when you're not speaking. And when someone else is speaking, maybe the panelists or any of our facilitators are speaking. Then if, for whatever reason, there is a glitch, you're unable to, maybe some network glitch, and you are signed out, that same link will bring you back in. Just tap that link again or click on it, whichever way, and you get right back into the conversation. If you have questions or comments, the chat room is there. There is a Q&A feature on your device in the package that you're using of Zoom right now. It will give you the opportunity to ask the questions, and of course, they will be taken and read at the appropriate time. If you also have a question, if you want to say something, just raise your hand. Use the raise hand feature on the lower part of the screen, or wherever part of your screen, whatever part of your screen that device, that facility is, you can use it, and at the appropriate time, you will be recognized and permitted to speak. If and when that happens, or whether it's you're speaking or you are writing a question or your comment, in all of your interactions, please use civil language so that we can give mutual respect. And also, in the chat room, please put your name and your email address in the chat feature on your device so that we can send you the virtual copy of the reports as soon as possible. Now, if you also, whether you're online or on-site here, you want to join this conversation or SERAP's social media handles, it's just SERAP Nigeria. SERAP Nigeria on Twitter, on Facebook or Instagram, on LinkedIn, as well as TikTok. Just one word, SERAP Nigeria. So once again, I say welcome to this event. My name is Ayo Makinde. To welcome us and set the tone for this event, please welcome once again Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, Deputy Director of SERAP. He seems to be engaged now. Kuton, please help me get him. Let him know the National Assembly needs him right now. He's approaching. A round of applause for him, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makinde. And good morning to everyone once again. And I'd like to appreciate your patience for the glitch we had previously. I'm sure we all know why we're here, at least to a very great extent. So mine is just more or less to clear all doubts, as it were, and set the tone. We are aware of the Auditor General's report. It's statutory, and that is what he does every year. To produce reports as part of statutory duties of government expenditure and spending, what in financial terms is called retirement of the funds that have been received. And so Serap has undertaken this work, not to produce the audit report, which is a statutory report in itself, but to analyze and to break it down and to make it easily accessible and understandable by the average Nigerian. This is part of what we do as advocacy. For those who know us for litigation, this may be a bit surprising. But again, it's part of what we do as part of public enlightenment, citizen education, and advocacy at government. So what we are here to do today is to analyze this report. Let's see whether we can make sense of it, from the market women to the artisans to the professors. Can we make sense of these reports and the various comments that the Auditor General has stated therein? And then we should have a discussion with ourselves as Nigerians, as all critical stakeholders in the Nigerian state, to ascertain what the problem is. And I can assure us we have able hands to present the report to us in understandable language. And we'll have a panel discussion and an interactive session, both with those in the room and those online, and hopefully end with recommendations, action points that each and every one of us can take home, that we can do as Nigerians and that government can do. So I'm welcoming everyone once again to this event. I'm really looking forward to a robust participation from all of us. And I know that at the end of this, we would really, really be able to contribute meaningfully to Nigeria's development. So thank you very much, everyone.
Please give him, yes, thank you very much. Unfortunately, if you are clapping online, we can't see you. We can't even hear it, but we appreciate it all the same. Okay, so let's get into it. We'll be letting us know in the course of time as we have people, dignitaries join us online. But in the meantime, let me welcome from the MacArthur Foundation, the Deputy Director of MacArthur Foundation, for his goodwill message. Please welcome Mr. Dayo Olaide. Mr. Olaide. Yes, please keep going. Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Olaide.
a couple of times. Our work
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Olaide, for that comment. If you would kindly mute your mic so that we can continue. So, well, that is what we have, and a goodwill message from MacArthur Foundation. Well, Mr. Olaide, Mr. Oluwadare was simply doing his job. So if you want to protest, let me point you in the direction to go. Go to the National Assembly. Then go to MBA. But let me do you one better, Mr. Olaide. If you have Mr. Oluwadare's home address, just tweet it and say palliative warehouse. That is the best way to execute your protest. Once again, Mr. Olaide, thank you very much. Well, we'll move on very quickly. Well, he has raised so many issues, some of which we will also hear in the next keynote address, which is coming from the office of the Auditor General of the Federation, Mr. Anthony Ayine. His representative is also joining us now. Please welcome Mr. Kiani. Oh, he's not here yet. Okay. All right. Okay. We understand the Auditor General is not available and his representative is not available either. However, the event will continue. Let's have the report presentation itself. I'm very excited. Well, it might please you if you have browsed through this document. So take some things if you want to do a little bit of comparison between what Mr. Olaide pointed out in the 2016 report, as well as the 2017 report that's been reviewed and analyzed today. There's been a slight improvement, Mr. Olaide. So if that is cheery, let's hear more on that as we have the report presentation now. Please welcome Mr. Segun Elemo.
Good morning, distinguished guest. My name is Olusegun Elemo, and I want to say thank you for joining us for this report presentation this morning. I want to say welcome to all our civil society colleagues in the room, as well as our media partners. Thank you for joining us. First and foremost, I want to thank the Director of Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, Mr. Adetokunbo Mumuni, as well as the Deputy Director for SERAP, Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, for this wonderful opportunity. I sincerely appreciate it, and I do not take it for granted to come and present this latest report of SERAP to the public. Thank you once again. And once again, I want to welcome you to this wonderful occasion. I also want to say thank you to MacArthur for supporting this work. I think this is one of the things we're glad to see in the civic space. So I want to say thank you to MacArthur. Thank you to Dr. Kole Shetima, as well as Mr. Dayo Olaide. Thank you very much for giving this support to SERAP to do this. But I also want to mention, before I go into the presentation proper, that Mr. Dayo, I think that I would like to join you in that protest. I'll be happy to lead the coalition in Lagos to Kola's house. So please, if you have his home address, like you said, you don't need to tweet it. Just send me a DM. I will execute it from Lagos. Thank you very much. Okay. So I think Mr. Dayo already mentioned a couple of things, and he's highlighted some key issues that we're going to look into in a broader perspective. But I want to pick it up from where Ayo stopped. You know, when he was making his comment, he said, why is it that, you know, in the Auditor General's report, you keep having all of these infractions year in, year out? And like Mr. Dayo said, these agencies of government continue to get appropriation every year. And we can go on and on. I think 20 minutes for my presentation is not sufficient. We can be here all day and be discussing the Auditor General's report. I think I want to also challenge, you know, Ayo, who is also, you know, in the media community. I think the media has a very strong role to play here. We've literally been begging media stakeholders to keep some of this discussion in the front burner. I think the media has a very key role in deepening democratic practice in Nigeria. If the media, which is the fourth estate, you know, does not do its job properly, there is very little citizens can do, and there is very little civil society organizations can do. So I want to use this opportunity to implore the media to keep the discussion around, you know, infractions contained in the Auditor General's report in the front burner, and particularly to also keep the discussion around the autonomy of the Office of the Auditor General in the front burner. Because if that office continue to be an appendage of the executive as it is currently, the Constitution says very clearly in section 86, 85, 86, 87, that the Office of the Auditor General shall not be under any control or authority of any person. Now, as it is today, the Office of the Auditor General is somewhat subject to the direction and control of the executive arm. And it is not supposed to be so. It's an aberration. If the foremost accountability institution in the country does not have its statutory allocation as a first-line charge and continue to get allocation from through the Federal Ministry of Finance, I think its work, we can say, authoritatively cannot be objective. So we need to solve that issue. We also need to solve the issue around the autonomy, the independence, administrative independence of the Office of the Auditor General. So today, as it is today, that office cannot recruit its personnel. It is the Federal Civil Service Commission that recruits for it. So if someone recruits for you, puts staff in your office and funds you, how then are you expected to carry out an independent and objective audit of such arm of government? So I want to use that opportunity to beg our guys, our people in the media, to put this in the front burner so that those who are responsible can take the necessary action. Having said that, we'll go straight into the presentation. We're presenting today Sarah's analysis on the 2017 Auditor General for the Federation's report. Please, is my slide active? I'm not sure. Okay. Okay. I think it's, yeah, okay. Okay, now, we have a key problem today in Nigeria. That problem, there's one very key problem evident we have today. That problem is around our education system. ASU has been on strike since March, and young people are at home. So the question now is, of course, as you're aware, ASU has been in talks with the federal government back and forth. The question is, what exactly is the problem? And you could see some of the issues that have been thrown up around this ASU strike. You saw the NSAS protest, and you see young people everywhere. Partly because, there is nothing. They are not engaged. and they needed to make their demands known. And of course, you're also aware that the NSAS is not just limited to the NSAS. It's also part of the broader accountability issues that we have in the country. Look at this slide. It says under deduction, non-deduction from payroll, pension, NHF payee, withholding tax, and VAT. A total of 1.3 billion was not deducted, as contained in the 2017 audit report. Federal University of Duse is here. Federal Polytechnic is here. University of Uyo is here. Kaduna Polytechnic is here. Federal University, I can't see this one clearly again. Petroleum Resources, Efurun, I think, yeah, is here. Now, 1.3 billion not deducted. ASU is saying that the federal government is not attending to the university, but you can also see some accountability challenges in the education system and focused in the tertiary sector. And this borders on how ASU itself is managing that sector. There's also another issue here that has to do with, I think you will allow me to also, I'm struggling, I think I have issue with my eyes, so let me also complement with my slide here so that it's easy for me. Okay. There's also an issue here, misapplication of funds. And a total, you have, and the Federal University of Petroleum Resources is also one of the biggest institutions mentioned in this aspect of the slide. And you have about 830 million misapplied by that university. And you have, Federal University of Duse there. You also have Kaduna Polytechnic. That is what you have there, 230.1 million. You have, as well, you have the Federal Poly Ilaro, about 27 million. That's what you have in the green. You also have, I think there is the Federal University of Wukari. I think it's here. You have 2 million naira. And then you have Federal University of Technology Akure. That's what you have here. You have 7.2 million naira. So you can see university misapplying funds. Again, what is the problem with ASU? I just wanted us to put some of this issue in context. Now, ASU is requesting for revitalization fund of 220 billion. Right now, ASU is telling the federal government to provide 50% of that fund. That's 110 billion. ASU is also requesting, this to be paid 40 billion naira. It calls it verified areas of earned academic allowances. 40 billion. Now, currently, ASU is saying that out of this 40 billion, it's telling the federal, as at the discussion that was held yesterday, ASU is telling the federal government to pay 30 billion upfront of this 40 billion of EAA, the earned academic allowances. Look at this big bucket of money here. It's 35.3 billion. 35.3 billion. That is the total amount of tax from both corporate entities and federal government agencies that Federal Inland Revenue Service refused, I call it refused, to collect in 2017 audit. 35.3 billion. Now, if you take 30 billion from that and solve this problem of EAA, we will be done with ASU, and that issue will just be done away with. I've always said it, and I've said it in different forums, that the question, yes, we have the issue of revenue crisis in Nigeria. We need to expand the economy. We need to up the revenue. But that is not our major problem today. Our major problem is leakages. We have, the public funds is leaking out in such huge volume. And because we are not earning much, right now, I'm sure you're aware, the federal government, the president submitted about 13 trillion naira budget to the National Assembly a few weeks ago. And much of that 13 trillion will be borrowed. Already, we are beginning to borrow money, we are beginning to request loan from even countries that are not even, in terms of the resources that we have here. I mean, not just natural now, because we need to start looking at the human resources that are available to us. And we cannot be talking about human resources if we are ignoring education. So if we are now borrowing money from Brazil, very soon we start going to Chad to borrow money. No, I mean, that's just it. You will be, I mean, it's funny. But how did we get to a point where we are beginning to request loan from Brazil? So, and I have also said it, it's not an issue of, yes, we need to expand the economy. That is a fact. We need to up the revenue. That is the fact. But how do you explain 35 billion that is not collected? How do you explain that? And to make it worse, you see, you could talk about tax avoidance and tax evasion in the private sector. But how do you explain that government awards contracts to private companies and it is expected to withhold VAT and, to deduct VAT and withhold tax? And then there's an accounting officer in an agency of government who just refuses to do that work. And there is no penalty whatsoever. Recently, I heard the Senate president, and I laughed. Because they are also corporate. And you see, there is no amount of intimidation that can keep us from saying the truth. We just have to confront the fact that we have, the reality that we have in our country today is that stakeholders are not doing what they ought to do. And the Constitution is clear on the role of every arm of government, and there are acts of parliament that is very specific to the roles of agencies of government. Now, the Senate president said that there are agencies of government that are shortchanging the federal government by not remitting operating surplus to the federation account. And I asked, and the question is to him, what is he doing about it? He, as the Senate president, is the chairman of the National Assembly, for crying out loud. How many resolutions has the National Assembly passed in that regard? In terms of review, like, Mr. Dayola said, in terms of review, the Auditor General's report annually, how many recommendations has the Public Accounts Committee sent to the executive as their own resolution to solving this problem that we have in our hands today? But I think that's a question, for another. So you could see that, just take 35 billion that FIRS refused to collect. Just collect it. Just collect it and pay ASU. And pay them off. Once and for all. And another issue I think we need to start addressing about this ASU problem is we need to ask the federal government whether it is really capable of funding the universities. If you're not capable of funding the university, just find an alternative. We cannot talk about harnessing the human potential, the human resources, the potential around human resources available in this country, and then we ignore education. And then we have a situation where, students of higher institutions have been at home for 10 months. And nobody's talking about it. I mean, we're talking about it, but they're just talking about it in the room. So, away from that is also, I think Serap's report is very comprehensive in such that we really cannot touch on everything there. But I just wanted to highlight a few things. So here on this slide, we have, on this green slide, we have, non-retirement or cash advances. And this is again, it's important to point out that we have laws in Nigeria. And it's also around, another issue we have is the issue of implementation of those laws. Look at this issue, non-retirement of cash advances, 20.5 billion. 20.5 billion. And this is a violation of Financial Regulation 1405. 1405 says prompt payment is around prompt payment of advances. And it says accounting officers are responsible for ensuring the prompt repayment of all advances by installments or otherwise. Again, the Accountant General of the Federation, and I'm happy that Mr. Dayo mentioned it during his remark. The Accountant General of the Federation sent accounting officers to different MDAs. I don't know whether the Accountant General, well, you see, we just have to be asking questions, whether these people actually do the work they need to do. Because (708) borders on payments, making selection based on technical and price factor. The total amount here that is not accounted for is 168.1 billion. 168.1 million. Like I said earlier, we really cannot, do all of this in detail during this short presentation, but I just wanted to highlight some of these key issues so that you have, somewhat a summary understanding of what we're dealing with. Again, you have here, items purchased, not supplied or taken on charge. And then you have a total of, and one of the agencies you have around there is NECO, National Examination Council. And the total violation, for them is about 7.2 billion. 7.2 billion. This particular issue here is around, the violation of Financial Regulation 2302, 2302, as well as 2107. The financial regulation is clear, and it borders on 2302 borders on payment vouchers for stores. It's around certificates, payment certificates that are issued, and then 2107 also borders on store ledger and how that store ledger is used. And these are basic issues for all accounting officers of MDAs. And for us, I mean, particularly for me, I don't think this should be an issue that we are still dealing with. That continues to reflect in the Auditor General's report. It must be that there are intentional and deliberate abuse of both Public Procurement Act 2007 as well as Financial Regulation as amended 2009. So the only explanation you can have for this is that there are accounting officers within ministries, departments, and agencies of government who are, hell-bent on continue and deliberately so to undermine, the procurement laws and financial regulations. And until we begin to deal decisively with those erring officers, we will not get past, this stage we're in. Again, part of the report that, part of the issue that have been highlighted in the SERAP's report is the, granting cash advances above approved limit of 200,000 naira. And you have a total of 944, it's here, 944.5 million naira. And there are different MDAs captured there. Again, you also have another issue here around, breach of e-payment policy within government. And it's an issue that borders on the breach of Financial Regulation 613. And what that regulation talks about basically is that payments shall be made only to the persons named in the vouchers or their properly authorized representatives. I don't know, when you make electronic payment and you simply divert such payment from the actual person that have been identified in a payment voucher, I don't know what other explanation we want to give to that other than to say that this is a deliberate attempt to continue to undermine, our regulations. And we must, again, continue to deal decisively with those actions. Another issue that you will find in SERAP's analysis is the non-remittance of internally generated revenue. And you have a total of 20.5 billion. 20.5 billion as IGR. I had this discussion recently, I think sometime last week. And of course, we are also beginning to look at how we can deal with this problem of IGR. The National Assembly is saying that, agencies of government do not remit operating surplus. And again, we need to call out the universities on this. The universities get their both capital and recurrent components of the budget from the federal government. But they also collect fees from students. The question is, what does the universities, and this is a question for ASU to answer, what does the universities do with those development levies, with those tuition fees, with those, all of those things? And it was just recently, I think the Public Account Committee called, the University of Ibadan to say, you have not submitted your audited accounts to the Auditor General in a while. What has happened? And the university says that the auditor went blind. You see, let me tell you something. I think we need to agree in this room that we are not a serious country. I think we need to agree on that first, that we are not just a serious country. And no country advances without having people who are serious running the affairs of that country. No country advances like that. We are going to be here year in, year out, and I don't pray so. It is not my joy that the issues my parents dealt with are the same issues I am dealing with. I don't want to leave these same issues for my children to begin to continue to deal with. I mean, what kind of silly explanation is that? That the auditor went blind. And because they know that nothing will be done. And nothing has been done. So, if you say the auditor went blind, are you talking about an individual or an organization? Again, it goes to question this issue around the way the Constitution is structured. That the Auditor General cannot audit some parastatals. And that's why we have shouted and screamed over the last 4 years that we need to get a modern audit law for Nigeria. And that's what solves this problem. That the Auditor General cannot audit some parastatals should not, I don't know. Sierra Leone has a modern audit law. South Africa has a modern audit law. Kenya has a modern audit law that solve all of these issues. So until we get a modern audit law that allows the Auditor General to audit all agencies, ministry, department, agencies, embassies, and courts, irrespective of their status, whether they are parastatals or whatever, then we will have a smooth sail. So we then just go into the conclusions and the recommendations that have been offered by SERAP. SERAP had concluded that yes, when President Muhammadu Buhari assumed power in 2015, he committed to 3 things: fight corruption, deal with the issue around economy and security. This issue of corruption, I beg to differ. I beg to differ. There's not much work that has been done around there. I beg to differ. In 2016 audit report, we highlighted 30 MDAs, 30 projects, capital projects, under about 5 MDAs. 2.97 billion was not accounted for on those 30 projects. In 2017 audit report, we highlighted 32 projects. 9.7 billion is not accounted for. A difference of 6.8 billion. I beg to differ. Corruption is still very strong. Corruption is still very alive. Corruption is still eating deep into the fabric of our nation. And until we deal with this issue, and one way we can deal with it is very clear. We have, and I say it again. In 2014, the budget of the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation was 2.7 billion. That of EFCC was around 7 billion or whatsoever. In 2017, the budget for the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation was 4.1 billion. That of EFCC was around 27 billion. The question is, are we keen on institutionalizing the fight against corruption? Is it just a lip service thing, or we are really committed to it? If we are committed to it, I think we should put some mechanism in place that allows the fight against corruption to continue in that speed. That even that even after the president hands over in 2023, it will not be a fight that is around one man, because even there's no fight today. I can tell you categorically, there's no fight. as it is today. Other than the fact that, anti-corruption agencies are just, hounding, few young people around. There's no fight. We need to take this issue headlong. Now, this report had been submitted since when? Since last year to the public account committees. What has the National Assembly done about it? What the National Assembly, through its public account committees, what they have only done is they have reviewed 2013, 2014, and 2015 audit report. Now they are struggling to do that of 2016. Now 2017 is there. 2018 will be submitted before the year runs out. 2019, we are still waiting for it. Now we're in 2020. I mean, when you look at this report now, some of the people that have not accounted for funds have died. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? There was a case in Enugu where we highlighted and we spoke to ICBC and we told ICBC, I said, look at this issue. And there was there was money that was not accounted for. There was a road project there that was not done. And we called ICBC. I said, look at this issue. And ICBC went in. And then they called the contractor. And then the contractor came to Abuja and said, okay, this is what happened. The bank, seized my money and all that. I said, okay, you were owing the bank. Then when government paid the money into your account, the bank then seized the money. What kind of problem is that one? That, even public funds, it's at risk everywhere. And you won't know the kind of risk that public funds, is going through. So there's this contractor that was owing bank. Immediately the MDA paid the contractor, the bank just stepped down the money. So ICPC then ordered the bank to release the money, that this money is different. This is public funds. Your private loan, go and sort it with him. Then they released the money. And then this guy went and finished the project and all of that. Do you know that 2 months after or 3 months after, the guy died? Now, the question is, if we had not taken that proactive step to recover the money from the bank and ensure that that money was used for that project, he would have died and nobody would do anything. Public funds gone. And that's what happens every year. I don't want to waste your time. Recommendation. SERAP has recommendations for the executive. It says, immediately impose stringent sanctions, including withholding financial release. I mean, Mr. Dayo already mentioned it. There's no point. Why do you continue to appropriate money? Why do you continue to appropriate money to agencies of government that don't submit audited account? Why? What morality do you have to continue to? And that's a question. That's a question for the National Assembly to deal with. Why do you appropriate funds to agencies of government that have not submitted audited accounts since inception? Why? Two, establish an independent commission of inquiry with subpoena and power to conduct a transparent, comprehensive, and impartial investigation into systemic corruption. It's very clear. MDAs are flouting public procurement rules and financial regulations, and we need to deal with it. Three, prosecute without delay, and according to international affairs, yes, very clear. Those who have been indicted in previous audit reports, they need to be prosecuted. He says, refer reports of corruption in MDAs identified in the Auditor General's report to anti-corruption agencies. Conduct institutional integrity analysis within MDA. We need to do that. We need to deal with the civil service. I'm not saying we need to deal with civil servants. That's not what I'm saying. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying we need to deal with the civil service. There is so much issue around there. It also has, recommendations for National Assembly. For National Assembly to be more proactive in the fight against corruption within MDAs, including urgently withholding, holding public hearings. Yes, we need to look at all of these reports that have been submitted, by the Auditor General. We need to be proactive about it. We need to deal with it quickly, not for the National Assembly to keep it in its shelf and then wait for a long time. No, it's not acceptable. Two, promptly pass the process of crime bill. Yes, that needs to be done. The whistleblower bill and the witness protection bill, among others. Refer reports of corruption in MDAs identified in the Auditor General's report since 2013 to anti-corruption agencies. Then, this one is one that is most important in Nigeria today. We need to pass a modern audit bill. It was submitted to the president in January last year. The president did not assent to it. Now we're making effort, and I believe that the president is trying and wants to do, some things and wants to leave a good legacy. And I also use this opportunity to call on the president to initiate that action of submitting an executive bill to the parliament on the audit and let National Assembly quickly look into it, pass it, and get it back to him for assent. This time around, we want the president to assent to it. We don't want stories. We don't want to start searching around for the audit bill. Finally, to the anti-corruption agencies, investigate, arrest, and prosecute according to international fair standard, everyone that has been indicted in the Auditor General's report, establish civil society desk to facilitate and improve access to public complaints about corruption in MDAs. 3, be more proactive in launching and following through criminal investigations into reports of corruption within MDAs. And then he also has some recommendations for the National Human Rights Commission. I think it's there. It is on this note, it's my pleasure to then present to the stakeholders in this room and to the general public SERAP's latest report, what he called Above the Law, How Ministries, Departments, and Agencies are Getting Away with Corruption in Nigeria, but we need to stop it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Elemo. Maybe we should, if only we had the power, if only SERAP had the power, we'll just elect you senator now, swear you in now, and send you to the Senate now. By the constituency of both this online and offline hybrid event. Unfortunately, I cannot also say all in favor, say aye. Because I know you are in favor already. But whether or not that to be, the question then will be, who is going to execute the aye when they have it? Well, you have looked at these issues and, you began by talking about the role of the media. I can't even begin to tell you how for years, I've been in this industry for long enough to know, but for years, I keep asking the question, who is asking questions about our funding as a nation? I get on air, we're talking about budgets, and I'm asking the question, please, why would you give money to someone who didn't retire the previous one? It was part of the question that we put to the Senate committee chairman on, I think, appropriations, a number of times. But then, as somebody would say, the wheel of justice is very slow. But is it deliberate? That's another question that we may want to ask. But we have to thank you very much, Mr. Segun Elemo, for this presentation. Another round of applause for him, please. So let's get into a wider conversation about this whole matter. Mr. Oluwadare, if we can have some people help us to do the readjustments for the... I've been noticing some comments in the chat room, and that's fine. So if you also have questions that you would like to raise about the issues that are being raised in the process of all this conversation, please go ahead and put them in the chat room. We will read them as soon as we get to that point. But let us begin now by recognizing and acknowledging some people who are already joining us in the virtual space. From Premium Times Center for Investigative Journalism, we have Mboho Eno, who is also joining us in the virtual space. Thank you very much for joining us here today at this event. We also have from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the person of Oliver Stolp. Thank you very much for joining us, as well as Abiodun Banjoko of Center for Democracy and Development. Thank you also for joining us. From the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in Lagos, the zonal head is also with us virtually, Abdurrashid Bawa. Thank you so much for joining us in this virtual conversation. So now, please come, let's have this arrangement for the next session, which is a panel discussion on this whole presentation that we are talking about. Now, I was trying to make a case the other time about how we have had to, over and over again, talk about the same things and almost having no headway whatsoever. That question is still right there in our faces, and we will find every way to resolve them this afternoon. And to join us for this conversation, let me take the pleasure to invite the three gentlemen that will be having this conversation with. We have all met one of them, who is the one who made the report presentation for us, Mr. Segun Elemo. He is one of the panel discussants. Please, thank you very much for joining us. Please. Also joining us for this panel discussion, one of our panelists is Mr. Olaniyi Olaleye. Thank you very much. And I'll also like to bring the third and final panelist here. He's someone that I have had to observe in the course of time how he does what he does as he does it, especially in the development space. Please welcome Mr. Shino Fagbunro Byron to join us. We have just about, you're welcome. We have just about 20 minutes for this session. So let's get into it. From what Mr. Olaide told us earlier, and which Mr. Elema has also talked about, we have had the Auditor General's report at least from 2012, every single year up until 2017, and as Mr. Elemo also said, we're expecting others. Well, let me begin with you, Mr. Fagbunro Byron. The main question we want to explore here, ladies and gentlemen, joining us online and offline, is why are authorities turning a blind eye, or seem to be turning a blind eye, to corruption in ministries, departments, and the agencies? And how impactful are these conversations? So let me begin with you, Mr. Fagbunro Byron. Where you sit, from your observation, working in the public space, working in development, where did all this come from?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'd like to thank Sarah for inviting me here to this esteemed gathering. I think it's long overdue. Well, getting straight to the point, many would not know. Well, let's put it this way. The largest earner of revenue in Nigeria is the NNPC. Many would not know that in the 43 years of NNPC's existence, for the first time, it has just produced an audited account in 43 years. NNPC is under the Minister of Petroleum. The Minister of Petroleum is the President. If you have a situation where a government department headed by the President himself, who asserts that he is an anti-corruption agent, has not produced an audited report, at least within the 5 years that it's been there, then the previous presidents who have held on to that position, I think with the exception of Jonathan, the other presidents during the civilian regime have all been ministers of petroleum. So in 43 years, NNPC has not had an audited account. The first time it was produced this June 2020. And from the information we gather, it was only produced because the federal government, in its quest for more loans, were told by the IMF that if you don't audit your NFDC accounts, you don't get nothing. So if you can understand that, Yorubas will say, "Eshin waju ni teyin wo." So the biggest cash cow, the person who is of the agency that is supposed to be the most accountable, has not rendered any audited accounts. So what is the incentive for others to do same? Or what is the justification to pursue others who have not done so? So it's sad. I took note of what the lead presenter said. And I would just like to say one thing. In all your recommendations, I would say this question of another high-powered, investigative panel to look at this, I think that's a waste of time. You said it yourself, we have the audit laws. We have the audit. People only need to do their jobs. So what is it that's stopping people from doing their jobs? You said it. Nobody sanctions anybody for not doing their jobs. So for me, I think there's a vested interest in keeping the situation as it is. The amount of money unremitted by NNPC itself is enough, probably supersedes some of the loans we're asking for. A little example, all we saw was all the figures we've been seeing, none has come from petroleum. None has come, and meanwhile petroleum determines about 70% of what we earn. So, we're between a rock and a hard place. And I'm not sure asking this government to do it, I think that it's like talking to yesterday.
I don't know what anyone will say to you about that one, because you remember the way you started. Successive governments haven't done it, okay? But at least, if for whatever reason, just as you said, this government has audited it. Hopefully somebody else will be able to take it further from here. But then, let me ask you, Mr. Olale, who should be asking the questions as to what ought to be done and what ought not to be done? The National Assembly, is the National Assembly asking the right questions? If the answer is yes, the National Assembly is asking questions, what then is going on? If not only the National Assembly, who else?
Thank you. So, yesterday,
Could someone help me check the microphones? Okay, go on.
Okay, yesterday I was having a conversation with my colleague, and I told him that there's actually a problem in every sector in Nigeria. Because let's look at the federal government, for instance. There's so much problem going around the federal government. And nobody's even paying attention to states, and nobody's paying attention to the local government. The attention has only been on the federal government over the years. From 2017, at budget, we're always doing something we call the frivolous items in the budget, where we recognize opaque items in the budget, item that does not even worth the value, and item that does not have description. So in 2017, we're able to identify over 1,000 line items in the budget. That doesn't have a proper description, that doesn't have value for money, and we presented it to the National Assembly. And items worth over 500 billion naira. After we presented this to the public hearing of the National Assembly, till today, there was no response or there was no changes to the budget. Instead of the budget to be looked at or to be reduced, there were increments in the budget. So I now asked myself, if citizens are asking the right question from the authority and the authority is not giving them the right answer, then who should we talk to? We're analyzing the open treasury portal, the portal the federal government created in recording payments. And I'll give you some shocking revelations we saw. So in 2019, we analyzed over 100,000 data sets in the open treasury. that NCDC only got 44% of the allocation. Then we look at the impact of corruption to service delivery. We saw a payment that was made to one individual, a total payment of 157 million naira. On the Open Treasury portal, payment is supposed to be made to contractors or to be made to the ministry. But a payment of 157 million naira was made to an individual without name of 157 million naira. Between January to July of 2019, over 2,900 payments was made to individuals at the value of 51 billion naira. And again, we saw payment that was even also made to personal accounts without description. 2 billion, 1 billion. Then we saw one individual, Mr. Ogunshuyi, that 68 million was made. So we presented this report also to the Ministry of Finance. Okay, look at this Open Treasury portal. Payments are being made to individuals, 51 billion naira without accountability. Payments are being made to contractors without description. Then here comes to the question, what is the government doing about it? We presented this report to the Ministry of Finance, we presented it to the Accountant General of the Federation. Till today, nothing was done about it. Then you look at this effect on corruption on what Nigeria is actually doing. Then you look at how much Nigeria is using for its capital expenditure or when they're supposed to impact the life of the people. Let's look at the trend from 2015 till today. The federal government of Nigeria, till today, they have not spent up to 5 trillion on capital expenditure. Then the debts of Nigeria have increased from over 10 trillion to 21 trillion. 10 trillion. When you ask the government what exactly are you using the debt for, they give you the question that they are using the debt to do capital infrastructure or to do capital projects in the country. They look at the spending of capital expenditure. Oh, it's not up to 5 trillion. From 2015 to today, in the period of 5 years, then Nigeria has increased in debt over 10 trillion. So if you ask the National Assembly these questions, you don't get a reply. You ask the agencies of government, nobody responds to you. You send the FOI to the National Assembly, nobody honors your FOI. Citizens have the same questions, nobody answers the citizen. Then you now begin to ask why the citizens are kind of having apathy towards governance. Sometimes I say to myself that it's not the fault of the citizen. Because let's look at ourselves for instance. If you keep asking your parents for money, first time, 2 times, 1 time, and did not give you, what happens? You get tired. So when you keep asking the government these questions and you don't get a response, when you keep asking the government this same question over the years, in the period of 5 years, 5 years you are asking the same question, fiscal transparency and accountability, and you don't get a response. Then people get tired, people get weary. Then you see people not being active when it comes to government. You see citizens being non-responsive when it comes to these issues. So there is a very, very big problem. The agencies of government have not been responsible to the people. The ministries have not been responsible to the important questions the citizens have been asking them.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Olale. Please give him a round of applause if you can. It's very, very insightful figures. But, Mr. Alemo, clearly you have been provoked by these figures. I glanced at that report, the copy that was given to me, and in that 1 year alone, I observed, and I pray I'm wrong, but I saw something in the region of 1 trillion naira minimum that was not remitted in that Auditor General's report. So these questions are being asked by, agencies like Budget, where Mr. Olale is from. The National Assembly is asking the questions, and all of these agencies. We heard, was it last year that or was it this year that the ICPC was quoted to have asked some questions of a particular agency, and we know where that goes. So those questions are being asked. Where do we go from here?
If you ask me where we go from here,
I'm asking you actually.
Oh, okay. But I want to quickly, before I answer that question, I want to quickly make a comment on what Mr. Fagbero mentioned around NNPC. I think we need to agree on one thing. Whether NNPC is serving us or we are serving NNPC. I think we need to agree on that. And we need to make it very clear. if we must reform the petroleum sector, I think what we should do about NNPC is that NNPC should take cost of exploration and not to withhold the entire sum it generates from the oil sector. And then tell the federal government that this is how much I'm releasing to you for now. The way we treat the FRS, by allowing FRS to take cost of collection of tax and remit the rest to the Federation Consolidated Revenue Fund, is the same way we should treat NNPC. What is the cost of production, exploration? What is the cost? Take the cost away and remit the rest to the Federation account. We shouldn't be begging NNPC to give us the money that is due to the Federation. NNPC is supposed to just be a company. So I think we need to, and those who are supposed to do that, should take that up.
Okay.
But in answering your question as to where we go from here, we need to agree on one thing, and that was what I said during my presentation, that it appears we are not a serious country. And we need to make a decision amongst ourselves, and that's part of that decision around whether you're calling for restructuring or whatever. Because truly restructuring means, different things to different people. But one thing that restructuring means to me is that how do we make public funds work for not just a select few, but for the entire populace? And the way to do that going forward is to ensure that public funds, no matter how little, is properly and adequately accounted for. When there are no punishment for wrongdoing, there certainly cannot be incentive for doing right.
Okay. Well, let me bring this to Mr. Fagbunro Byron. The title of this book is Above the Law: How Ministries, Departments, and Agencies Are Getting Away with Corruption in Nigeria. Incidentally, the anti-corruption agencies are also ministries, departments, and agencies. And if you look in the Auditor General's report, there are cases where some of these anti-corruption agencies themselves are seen to have been culpable over the years. So, if the policeman needs to be policed, where do we go from here?
Thank you very much. I think you almost answered the question yourself by your last statement. Who polices the police? On the question of the anti-corruption agencies, we have an issue of true independence. How truly independent are they? The second issue we have is a question of capacity. I think the capacity of quite a number of so-called anti-corruption agencies in terms of their personnel, particularly when it comes to investigation, is less than commendable. The third issue is the question of the National Assembly. I think Nigerians have for too long neglected legislature as a critical arm of government that they should be concerned with. I think we should be more concerned with those who we elect into legislative offices. My brother from Budget raised the issue of presenting certain things to the National Assembly, and they didn't listen to you. Well, you didn't finish the story. They not only did not listen to you, they brought out a law to sanction civil society to make sure. Fortunately, we fought against that law and we made sure that it didn't go. Because they are asking now for accountability from civil society. They want to know how civil society get their money. They've left NNPC, they've left the Ministry of Finance, left all the revenue generating agencies. They are pursuing how civil society's money comes. So this is the kind of National Assembly that we happen to have had. For me, it's always prevention is always better than cure. I have some experience. I have quite an age past me. So this was very predictable. It's a trajectory. What we are noticing now is a trajectory that has been birthed 25, 30 years ago. What we can do and the best way we can spend our time now is for agencies, CSOs, do a thorough forensic analysis of how these leakages, how this bleeding happens. Because Nigeria is hemorrhaging. We are bleeding from every single orifice. We are bleeding financially from every single orifice. It's wasting financial resources, but the most important thing we are wasting are the human resources, which is even more valuable than the financial resources. Do a forensic on how it is bleeding. Let us know exactly where it is bleeding. Let us make sure we publicize that. And then we must get a groundswell, a massive groundswell. Spending our energy now should be more cerebral than physical. And getting the word out there and getting people to know, and then we must have converts. Because let me tell you the truth. Those who are responsible for what is happening now have thoroughly mentored some who will take over from them. Things that, what do the executive and the legislature have in common? They may be separate arms of government, but they belong to the same parties. Public Accounts Committee, which one would have expected, because Public Accounts Committee is usually reserved for the opposition party. And you would expect that the opposition party will take a robust attitude towards interrogating the accounts of any government. But all of a sudden, they're quiet. That's what I'm saying, they're quiet. They forget their opposition. Because there's an amount of, the word settlement is obscene, but that's just the truth of it.
All right, thank you very much. Well, I have this comment from Timothy Elisha on Zoom, and I'm going to take it with you, Mr. Lale. He says, we need a responsive system, government, and people. Glad consciousness of Nigerians is being shaped, though it is gradual but meaningful, ensuring in no distant time we will see desired results, moving Nigeria to its place. We need a responsive system. I would interpret that to say he's talking about institutions. We have institutions. How effective have they been? And what must we do to make them effective so that they can be accountable?
I would like to start from the National Assembly that he has mentioned. And I would like to ask the whole House this question, if they've ever seen the budget of the National Assembly before. Because I know if I ask the people now that, have you ever seen the budget of the National Assembly? I don't think anybody here will be able to answer me. They've ever seen the budget of the Nigerian National Assembly. So as part of our advocacy, we're running the advocacy of openness for over 6 years now that we've been asking the National Assembly to present. So if we have seen all these issues in other ministries, and we want to present it to the National Assembly to ensure accountability in MDA, and the National Assembly we are presenting it to, they never even released their budget to the public. So, the National Assembly released their budget in 2017 during the administration of former Senate. And the total budget was about 125 billion. The 125 billion will only be going for recurrent expenditure. No capital. So, if you are spending 125 billion every year, and you get about 93% of this allocation when funds has been released, and nobody, citizen, CSO, journalists don't have an idea about how this money is being spent. There is a very, very, very big problem. Since 2015 till today, and the National Assembly will be calling the MDAs to come to public hearing to come and be defending their budgets. And you've never for once presented the details of your budget how you want to spend the money, where the money is coming from, where the money is going to, over 100 billion from 2015. And you are not responsible to the people. That one aside. So we now see the problem where the MDAs are being called to public hearing, the MDAs are being called to defend their budget, they are being called to audit meeting, and they don't even show up.
Are you saying that the institutions themselves are weak?
The institutions, number one, we have to work on the institution because there is no institution that will be able to enact law, that will be able to make things happen when nothing is even going on there. The institution especially is very, very weak. The National Assembly that's supposed to be the law-making body of the Nigerian system are not even responsible to the people. They are not even accountable. I was looking at the allocation of the National Assembly and I was comparing to the minimum wage of Nigerian worker. Minimum wage of Nigerian worker is about $78. Then if you look at the revelation of former senator, how much the senator is making, how much the senator is earning, he said about 30 million naira monthly. If you change that one to dollar, that's about $32,000. Then a Nigerian worker, a minimum wage is about $78. That means it will take an average Nigerian worker over 400 years to earn the salary of a senator. Over 400 years to take an average Nigerian worker to earn the salary of a senator.
I hope your analysis factors in the fact that the life expectancy of the Nigerian is 53 years.
How do you want to spend 400 years to even earn that amount of money? And there is no explanation on how the public fund, these are funds being contributed by the people, these are taxes. And we are complaining of funds leakages in Nigeria. Now look at the total revenue of Nigeria from 2015 to 2019. Nigeria has only increased its total revenue with just 17% in the period of 5 years.
Okay. These are definitely probing. Very difficult to even surmise. But let me go back to Mr. Elemo. So this is where we are now. And gratifying also, if you listen to what Mr. Olaide said at the beginning, and if you also look at the document that you have in your hand, the Auditor General of the Federal Republic of Nigeria says there's been a marked, a slight difference, a slight improvement. Mr. Olaide mentioned, for instance, that about 69 agencies that had never remitted to federal government coffers. But the report you have in your hand says only 11 agencies have never remitted. So maybe we can say there is an improvement, or not?
Somewhat. But you know, much of that improvement, you know, it took the previous just 2 weeks ago or thereabout to lobby even the NNPC that you mentioned. He literally had to go begging these agencies of government to submit their audited accounts. But like I said, when there are no consequences for wrongdoing, there will be no incentive for doing it right.
So what, in your opinion, should be the reprimand, the consequence?
Talking about accounting officers deliberately breaching procurement rules and financial regulation. I mean, they do it. I mean, there's no other explanation you want to give to that. It's not a capacity issue. When you award a contract of 10 million to a company, and they're supposed to take 5% of that 10 million, 500,000 for VAT, and another 500,000. You simply do not do that, and you do it. You ignore it over a number of contracts within your ministry. Perhaps maybe you go behind to meet the contractor that we're able to give you this, please, and all of that. What should be done is that, for instance, the previous the audit bill that was sent to the president, that the president did not assent to in January 2019. A provision in that bill that says that the Auditor General will have the power to surcharge an accounting officer. So, for instance, now, once the Auditor General realizes that you have committed an infraction, the Auditor General, even before it submits its report to Parliament, can say that you are not collecting salary for the next 3 months.
Okay. So that is your, because we need to begin to wind down. So that would be your recommendation, that we should strengthen that office of the Auditor General?
Give it a modern audit law. Not a 1956 audit act that we currently have. I mean, we have a pre-independence audit law, and I don't know how we can use a 1956 audit act to evaluate a 2020 or a 2021 budget. Whether that 1956 audit act takes into cognizance the reality of present-day corruption issues that we are currently facing.
Okay.
And it doesn't.
Well, I don't know. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Don't you think that's what we're talking about here, Mr. Olale? Well, he's talking about the law. He says that the law is too old. So the question then is, if it's not broken, is there any need to fix it? Maybe that is what he's talking about. But I don't know. I'll come back to you. Well, I would like you to take you last, but let me ask you this. Well, there has been issues about the law, the audit laws, all of the financial laws and all of that we have in the country. Do we have a problem with the laws?
Well, I think even the laws as archaic as they are, and I totally agree that those laws are archaic. There are a number of laws that are archaic. But even as archaic as they are, if they were implemented, there would be a whole lot of difference. Then if people were professionally responsible, nobody is an auditor or becomes an auditor or, without being qualified as a chartered accountant. There are professional ethics. So to answer your question very straightly, the laws, yes, they can be updated. But what we have now provide us with a minimum at which, if we thoroughly comply, we wouldn't have the problems we have now. We could do better with better laws, though.
So, Mr. Laleye, what do we do going forward? You have been working with this, especially the budget end, for quite a while. What should be done going forward?
Okay, in my experience of working on, I believe citizens have a role to play when it comes to issues like this, and we've seen over the years as when things are pushed to citizens and citizens take this action, governments somehow respond to the citizen. Because I will give an example. There was a time we did a salary survey where we look at how much the state governments were owing salaries in 2015, and we were able to see that about 26 states are owing salaries of workers ranging from 8 months to 15 months. And after we sent our field officers to different states to get these figures from civil servants across all levels, local government, teaching, and all of that, and we pushed this information to the public, the headline came like 26 states presently in Nigeria are owing their workers' salary. We noticed something when this information was pushed out. We started receiving calls from state governments, and they were disputing our figures. They were saying they were not owing salaries. Some were saying they were not owing 6 months. Some were saying they were not owing up to that amount we quoted. So we now had to call our field officers that what was going on. So they now had to tell us that presently the state government have started paying salaries. So they had to call the workers across border. What is going on? They said they just started getting alerts from the state government. So I now had to think about it, that when people start taking actions, or when government sees that this thing is going to affect the re-election bid, they're more going to be responsible to the people. So citizen number one, they have a role to play. The citizens have to be very, very active in demanding accountability and transparency. You can't leave it to
how do you suggest it to someone? Sonny Mohammed on Zoom says we need a protest, but I think we've had enough protest for 1 year. How do you suggest that the people should?
Citizen engagement. Of course, what we are doing here. This information has to be very broken down to the ordinary people, and people have to see the effects. I think we've not even talked about the effect on public service, on service delivery issues. If this information is broken down to the people on how this publication is impacting their lives, people will take action. For instance, let's do the analysis. 51 billion was lost. Do you know how much 51 billion would do in constructing road, in providing water for your communities, in providing electricity? I think when citizens start seeing that insight, that's when they start taking actions.
Well, perhaps maybe to make it a little better, the national budget for 2021 is like 13
trillion.
13 trillion. So divide that into 200 million. That's how much each Nigerian is supposed to contribute. And if you don't have it, go and borrow. That's what it will look like. So, Mr. Fagbero Byron, you have been in development, and I can almost say that you've been to a good number of states in Nigeria and at least all 6 geopolitical zones. Looking at the shortfall of development and the challenges we are having with the funding, getting the funding, the leakages, and judicious use of whatever it is that we have left. How far gone are we, and what do we need to do to retrace our steps?
Well, I think in certain directions, we have not only gone so far, but we've also burnt the bridges that got us there. So we can't even retrace steps in certain ways. And that is why some in the extreme, when they discuss of what we should do, they will mention restructuring, which means a total recalibration of control, management, and accountabilities within the Nigerian system. Who is accountable for what? Who owns what? Who is accountable for what? And who should bear responsibility for what? So that, to me, speaks to that. But in terms of, you see, because everybody now, under the guise of a centralist unitarist system, there is so much that can be dodged. There is so much. They say power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's a time-old adage. And we continue to over-centralize. And so what do we expect? At the state level, let me tell you something. You know why the state is even worse? The states are worse because, at least at the federal level, there is the federal constitution to determine the accountability of the president vis-a-vis the people and the National Assembly. There is no state constitution. The governor determines what the state says. And that is a big lacuna in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Until we have state constitutions, which tells us that this is the limitation of a state government, this is the relationship between a state governor of our professionals sufficiently. I happen to be a lawyer, amongst other things, and I want to credit the NBA, at least the NBA, when it comes to fighting for justice, fighting for human rights. The NBA as a group comes out to say, oh, as an NBA, I mean, I remember the days of Alao Akabashon, Bola Jibola, and co. Any NBA, right now, Akpata is virtually trying to lead the human rights issues behind the NSAS protests. Why can't ANAN, the Association of National Accountants, are they not civil society? Do they not have an interest whether Nigeria is seen as a country where accountability is being given priority? So we don't see these things. But to be honest, I want us to address this issue of state-level accountability. Once you don't get it ready at this, because the best people that can hold the federal government to account are the states. Because what we don't understand is that the federation account does not belong to the federal government alone. State governments have the capability, they have the interest. Many states are broke today, not because there is money owed to the federation account, and they own part of that federation account. Yet they cannot challenge. Why? Because they themselves have an issue to account. I don't know if I'll have any time to speak again after this. But if we're rounding out, let me just say something. I want to pick it up somewhere, because going to this particular topic, I think we could drive the hashtag no audited account, no budget allocation. If we do not emphasize that and continue to promote that, it's a simple thing. How do you come before the budget and not tell me how you spent the last one, for crying out loud? That is the minimum.
Thank you very much. So it looks like the protest that Mohammed talked about earlier Sonny Mohammed talked about is going to be virtual. So you have heard that hashtag, and I know that Serap is going to pretty much latch onto it, but I have to thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation this morning. Mr. Shegun Elemo, report presenter, Mr. Olani Olaleye from Budget, as well as Mr. Shino Fagbero Byron. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation. Well, right now, of course, we have also had your own contribution who joined us in the virtual space. And I'd like to invite Mr. Oluwadare to come forward. I believe that he has some recommendation and action points. Is that you, or has that been done already? Gentlemen, you can return. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm told you're supposed to.
Please, can we have his report online, please? Yes, presentation. So what we have to look at is we want to create action points after all this. And I want to thank everyone for the patience and for coming with us thus far. So we're at this critical junction of this engagement, where we have spoken, we have engaged, and we've had analysis from our wonderful panelists. So this is the action point and what we want to do now. And so what I'm going to ask each and every one of us is, what are those points that we as individuals can latch onto that we are going to do to take these forward? Can you go to the recommendations part, please? So what are those things we can do as Nigerian citizens, as in our various fields of endeavor? We have the media in the room. And I can say, they, more than anybody else, they are empowered by the Constitution, Section 22, to do what they are doing is part of that anyway. And they have to take that forward. But also citizens are not left out to engage with government. So I'd like to invite us. I'm willing to listen to everyone, and we have people online too. What do you think you can do? And this is not about what Serap can do, because I heard it a lot, really. Can Serap do this? Can Serap do that? So what can we do? That's very important. Can I have suggestions from the room, please? Where's the second mic? Okay, someone is there, please. Derek, please, can you pass the mic, please? So we'll have our rapporteurs take notes. Can you give him the mic? So you can just speak from where you are. We'll do this in the next 10 minutes.
Hello, good afternoon, House.
Afternoon.
Yeah. So my name is Ayomide Johnson. The other time I heard one of the presenters speak, he spoke about how the dilemma right now is about how we can establish accountability from the government. And then I remember the moderator equally spoke about how we've had enough protest already in line with the NSAS protest. In my opinion, the concept of establishing accountability cannot exactly happen when we have a government that has already weaponized poverty. I mean, that really was the breakdown of the NSAS protest. We had young people come out to speak, and they felt at this point in time we can hold the government accountable. But it did not happen because some people without, any sort of financial stability could have easily been paid, allegedly paid by certain government establishments to disrupt this protest. And the other time I equally heard, I think it was Mr. Shino, speak about how sensitization really can do the job. I don't see how sensitization really can help in a situation in which, I understand majority of the people in public offices understand the diversity or the difference between right and wrong. But some people intentionally make a conscious effort to, impoverish the masses and to, really engage in very selfish things. So in my opinion, I feel like we only can have a way forward when really we have either incentives for rights or sanctions for wrong. And how exactly can that come into place? He spoke about the, Auditor General's Act, or I can't remember, the Auditing Act, and about how it was really ineffective. I think it needs to get to the point in which, okay, of course there's a legislator, the legislature enacts laws. And the point in which we can really get to the point in which every single person can hold their respective legislative representatives accountable for them to make laws that definitely punishes wrong on the face of it or rewards good on the face of it. I think we have to get to a point in which neutrality has to play a big role. We cannot exactly twist laws to favor some people and to disfavor some other people. I think that's exactly where the focus of our conversation should be right now. How exactly can we have every single person reach a consensus in relation to, you understand, holding our legislators, first of all, accountable for them to make laws that will be neutral on the surface. And also learning from the point of the NSAS protest, like I brought earlier. If the government can weaponize poverty one more time, and for some people to eventually have to sell their voice, the same way votes are being sold every 4 years, then we've lost. So if you're thinking about any recommendations right now, I don't think we should probably only put in cognizance the middle class or the civil societies that are here or the number of literate people that are here. I think you have to put in cognizance the poor, because in every single point of democracy, the majority rules. And it's not just about literacy, it's not your academic qualifications, it's about numbers and the vast majority of people on slums, and we have to put that into cognizance too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amide. I take it you're speaking to public enlightenment and engagement with the poor, which according to the MBS occupies more than 80% of Nigerians. Okay, so do we have any other action points in the room, please? Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kolawole Uluwadare. Thank you, stakeholders and other media colleagues here. I think what we'll do more is improving the level of information flow from SERAP and other advocacy groups on issues like this to our media platforms. Already, like it was stated, the media plays a very key role. And at our own level, various platforms, electronic, online, and even various other platforms have been carrying this message. So the continuous flow of information around issues like accountability from the reports of the Auditor General is very important, so that when we get those informations, we break them down. And then also for the media, we can also break this down to themes. So for example, in number 7 recommendation to the federal government, we're talking about it requires that all heads of MDAs should publicly declare their assets. So themes like that should come on board to the front burner, asking questions in our discussions or interviews of how many heads of MDAs have publicly declared assets. When they see this brought to the fore, they will take it seriously that it's very important for accountability. So continuous flow of information from SERAP and other advocacy groups to the media. And for the media, we take sub-themes from these recommendations in front burner of our programs on Channel Sunrise or Web TV, Economy and Politics Show, or TVC programs. When we keep bringing news to the light, those in government will know that they have to sit up and be accountable. Citizens watching will know that there's a lot of demand from them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For those of us who are in the virtual space, you can just raise your hand if you really like to say anything. If you do not want to talk, if you want to talk, we will be able to hear you. All right, so just raise your hand and then we'll get you in a bit. Is there no other one in the house? Yes, please. I'll come to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. One thing I have learned during the NSAS protest is that we are underutilizing the technology age. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is the government is now afraid of the information we pass to the public about them. So from my own technological experience, what I think we should do more is a subtle shame game. This will majorly bring our government to accountability. We have been doing too much paperwork in Nigeria and it's not working. So what I think we should do is bring reports of the states that are defaulting, put it in the public space, use influencers in different languages to pass the information across to everyone. And once the shame game starts, our government will sit up. The moment we continue to do the grammar thing, and it's not getting to the woman selling pepper and the person selling fish, you know, once they pass on the road and there is a shame game going on, everyone will sit up.
Thank you.
Well, let's hope that works. Well, thank you very much, though. Please come to the front here, because, I mean, some members of the National Assembly, there's someone here. We'll come to him. We'll come to you. Some members of the National Assembly have had that happen to them, and I don't know how else that can go, but then thank you for your opinion. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, the organizers. I'm Oluwadamilare Benin. Yeah. Firstly, I would actually like to make mention of the outdated laws we have in our country today. We have many clauses of the laws, of most especially of our constitution, the CFR, yearning for amendment. I actually want to believe that the legislatures are being vested the right and the power to make the law. So there are a lot of situations where we need new laws to operate, and we need a implementations, and also responsiveness of government to the plight of the citizens. We need the government to actually come in aid and also to recognize the plight of the citizens. Governments don't really take the citizens serious today. And also, sensitization of average Nigerians and the well use of the media. We have many Nigerians that up to today, they don't really still believe that the government owes them the duty to be well accounted for the public funds spent on our capital projects. There are we have many capital projects being carried out but not being implemented in our country. So I feel we need a responsiveness of government to a citizen's plight in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that one. There's someone else raising his hand in the back there. You may want to also, get to him. But for those of us who are in the virtual space, if you would like to say something, just raise your hand. We will recognize you, and you will be allowed to unmute your mic and then pass your comment. If you would, however, want to drop a question or two, please go ahead and do that as well. We'll take them right here. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yomi. And just like the panelists have shared earlier, one of those things that resonates is when we can connect number to emotions. And one of those things that sustained NSAS was waking up every day and hearing another story entirely that's totally different from what we heard yesterday, and that pricks the human mind about the assault that the SARS officials have done to citizens. And one of those things that I believe this nation faces today is that we are hemorrhaging in all the different sectors. You talk about health, you talk about education, you talk about security, which was what led to the protest. And I believe that one of those things that we can do as citizens is if we can have a central portal that shows our national needs. We want to talk about bad roads, so we can connect it to different communities, we can connect it to different citizens, and kind of have some bit of citizen engagement, media engagement. And we can begin to connect this to the different funds that we are supposed to use to actually address this aberration that faces us as a nation. I believe the ability to connect numbers to emotions will take us further to help citizens to demand. Because when NSAS started, it started from the youth. After the youth, it moved to the middle class. From the middle class, the poor started talking about this. And I believe if we can connect the different classes in the society, we'll do a lot to check corruption in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. We'll come to you, sir. There's someone who raised his hand at the back. But while we're going to him, don't forget, your own comments are also very, very important. If you have them, one or two things that you may want to say. If you would like to speak to us live, we are available to hear you, sir. Just raise a hand. Please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Bertram Wanekam. I just want to make just one point there. And that goes in tune with what one of our panelists said, that's Mr. Shino, said in issue of creating a hashtag. Because the experiences that we gathered from this NSAS protest shows that importance of numbers, trying to get a critical number of the citizens approaching this, because we have been having conversations mainly from those that are privileged. You know, we find it very difficult having more of people in the marketplace. I only remember one time Serap had a program where people from the market was invited. I think that is an airport hotel. You see more of citizens being brought in. Because what happened is that we have been talking a lot. And the experience of NSAS shows that when people carry out these things, carry this approach, they will be able to reach, make a good impact. So I will propose, in line with what Mr. Shino did, creating a hashtag, sending it across, sensitizing people through that means. Many people do not even read newspapers again. It's just few people read. The same people that have been reading keep on reading. So many other people don't want to listen to all those things. But some of this way will help us in line with other points, key points again, and it will help us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please take to the gentleman here. Still waiting for your comments, and if you raise a hand, we'll take you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Waheed Ishola, Director, National Orientation Agency, Lagos State. I came in a little bit late, but having listened to the contributions, I just want to say this. I am glad the moderator, in replying, the guy that said we needed protests, that we've had enough of protests for now. However, I want to agree with the panelists over there that it is not the absence of laws, in curbing corruption, in MDAs, everywhere, in all our facets of lives, but it is enforcement of those laws. No matter how obsolete those laws tend to be right now, there are still provisions in those laws that can still guard against, corrupt practices. And on this note, I want to give it to Sarah for being in the forefront of trying to call people in government out, for them to do what they are supposed to do for the citizenry. We have the Freedom of Information Act. I think all CSOs, all critical stakeholders must use this Freedom of Information Act to demand from people in government. Yes, we know that a lot of states are saying that they need to domesticate the Freedom of Information Act, but I don't see where states will now begin to domesticate a federal law. So that is, I think, Sarah is still in court on all of this to ensure that this Freedom of Information Act is, really implemented in all the states. However, I want to align with somebody that spoke about bringing on board people in the grassroots. I recollect that Sarah had an engagement at the other hotel there where we had people from all across walks of life, the people from the communities and all of that, letting them know that they need to demand from their representatives. When we are laid back and we feel people in government are not there to serve us, we will not get anywhere. So we must continue to demand from people in government.
Okay. Well, I'd like to have a conversation with you afterwards because, National Orientation Agency, we have a lot of talk. But I can see that Everest Ukachuku is raising his hand via Zoom. You want to join us now? If you can unmute your mic and let's see your video as well. Everest Ukachuku, you have the floor. Everest Ukachukwu, please go ahead. I think he's talking. Could you, if you... Your mic is still on mute, Everest. Okay. Well, you raised your hand and... Okay, well. We saw your hand up. That is why we called you, unfortunately. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's about the much that we can take of this event. We'll have to thank you all very much. And I believe, just as Mr. Oluwadare said earlier, the rapporteur has taken some notes to ensure that they are not just talk, but they are also actionable points. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation. You may return to your seats. Could you kindly give them a round of applause as they go back to their seats? And for the closing remarks and vote of thanks, I would like to call Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare to the microphone one more time.
No, I wanted to use Mr. Makinde's.
You still need that address.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Makinde. I think maybe speaking through his mic will possibly give me part of his voice and his boldness. I mean, end up on TV, you never know. So, thank you, everyone. So I'm doing this on behalf of Serap Management, the board, and the director, who is unfortunately unavoidably absent, and the whole of the Serap staff. We've all heard, we've seen, and we've deliberated and discussed, including with the other constituents, the members of those I call the second geopolitical zone. Not only, I'd like to single out first the MacArthur Foundation, without which we would not have been able to do this, either this physical event or the report itself, which formed the basis of what we are doing here today. The MacArthur Foundation they are one of our sponsors, and they funded this project of transparency and accountability, under which the analysis was done. We would like to appreciate, and I'm sure he's still here with us virtually, Dr. Kole Shetima, that's the country director of the MacArthur Foundation. He's been a wonderful supporter of our work in Serap. And the deputy director of MacArthur Foundation as well, Mr. Dayo Laide, who we had, he did a goodwill message for us earlier. So thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Mr. Shegun Elemo, that director of the PLSI, for his wonderful presentation of our work. Yes, we all know that the audit report is a statutory report, but he presented it and made it come to life by what he did here today. So thank you very much. We appreciate you. And to the wonderful panelists, the erudition displayed is quite exemplary, and something to really appreciate you for. That's Mr. Shegun Elemo himself. We have Mr. Shina Fagbenro and Mr. Olaniyi from Budget. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. And to all our CSO partners, some who joined us virtually, some were actually with us in the room as well, and some who may not have participated, but I know that in spirit and in truth, they are with us. I'd like to single out the Premium Time Center for Investigative Journalism, the Budget, and the UNODC. That's Mr. Oliver Stope, which I saw was online with us a while ago. Thank you very much. And to everyone in this room, including the media, our beautiful friends in the media who not only support us in what we do, but they amplify our voices in various ways through their work. We appreciate you. For those in the room and those who are with us online too, I appreciate you. And for everyone in this room representing MDAs, individuals, or citizen groups, I'd like to say thank you. You've been with us here since 10 a.m., and we appreciate you. And this is for also all of those who participate with us virtually and on Zoom. We thank you very much. And I'd like to single out Mr. Ayo Makinde. I didn't want to thank him before because he threatened to put my... No, we'll talk about that later. So thank you very much for your wonderful hosting this show. We really appreciate it. So thank you, everyone. I understand there are arrangements made for refreshments after this, so you can get your tickets as you exit the hall. Unfortunately, those on Zoom, until we find a way of feeding you virtually, I think the welfare is in the pipeline, like they were saying in the government. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.